Thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So our podcast is for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. So today, we're going to give you 5 tips on how to become a better storyteller. So why storytelling? Well, storytelling is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It'll help you in business. It'll help you in marketing. It'll help you in public speaking. Or even if you just want to be more engaging in everyday conversations, storytelling is the single biggest skill you can hone. We're telling you, it matters. It captivates audiences. It makes your message more memorable. It builds emotional connections between you and whoever you're talking to, a person, a group, an audience, whatever. And it will help you persuade people more effectively. You'll find, if you look back through history, great storytellers are often great leaders. And if you look at a leader in business, I'll bet you they've got a pretty good gift or a pretty good approach to being a storyteller. So that's why we pick storytelling. We think it's very important. It works really well for us. In this episode, we're going to give you 5 concrete tips to improve your storytelling, including actionable exercises you can practice and stories about storytelling. Why would we not do that in an episode about storytelling? So with that, let's jump into it. We'll jump into our 5 tips right now. So tip number 1 is to start with a strong hook. People decide within seconds whether they're going to keep listening to you or tune you out. And if you start with some droning on, unimaginative, unexciting statement, that's not going to keep their attention. It's not going to keep them engaged in the conversation. It makes the audience lean in. A good hook makes the audience lean in, want to know what's next. So here's some examples of great hooks. A shocking statement. I was fired from my dream job on my birthday, right? That's a heck of a start to a story. A compelling question. Have you ever made one decision that changed your entire life? Sure, who doesn't want to hear more about that? Or a vivid scene. The air was thick. I stepped onto the stage. My palms were sweating. Right? Those are all hooks. Now, you can choose how to deliver those, but those are great hooks. I have a story I tell a lot, true story. My wife, at one point, in front of a group of people, said, I've never been attracted to good-looking guys, while she was standing next to me. It's funny. What she means is she's not attracted to pretty boys, which is true. And I find great humor in it. I thought it was very funny. I got a lot of confidence, didn't shatter my confidence in any way, shape, or form, but it's a great story to tell. So that's one that we use pretty often. But come up with a good hook. So how do you do that? Practice. Practice writing hooks if you're making pitches at work. If you're going to make a presentation somewhere, if you just want to get better in social situations and say, hey, I want to figure out good conversation starters, right? There's a funny scene in the movie, what is that movie, Hall Pass, where the guys get their hall pass from their marriages and they go out to a Chili's of all places and they're going around the bar. Hey, how much is a polar bear? Enough to break the ice. I'm so-and-so. How you doing? Those types of things, right? They're silly and they're stupid. Pickup lines we're not big fans of, but the way they did it in that movie was funny. But it's a hook. It's a hook to draw people in and want to talk to you more. So practice. Practice writing those hooks. Test them out on your friends. Test them out on your family. Test them out on your coworkers. See what they think. Role play it. Figure it out. See how it works. See how the delivery works. Maybe emphasis on a different word. Emphasis on a different word changes a sentence a lot, right? She wasn't talking about me. She wasn't talking about me. She wasn't talking about me, right? Those all carry different connotations because of the word I emphasize in the sentence. So practice all of those things with your hook. I was fired from my dream job on my birthday, right? I was fired from my dream job on my birthday. I was fired from my job on my birthday. All of them have a little different connotation. You can experiment with those. It's a good way to go. Okay, tip number 2. Use vivid details and sensory language. So specific details make stories come alive and they help listeners visualize the scene that you're describing. So instead of saying it was a hot day, you can say the sun burned my skin as sweat dripped down my back. Those are both the same thing, right? It was hot, and man, the sun was scorching my skin. I could feel the sweat pouring down my back. Big difference between the two of them. That vivid language will draw the listener in. It'll help them visualize what you're trying to describe, and it really matters. So at one point, we had a house that was mostly built, but not all the way built. Didn't have gutters on it yet, which is important for the story. So I came home from work one night, and my wife and my 3 boys, who were probably, 9, 7, and 5 at the time, something like that, were bailing about a foot of water out of the basement. And when I tell you they were bailing water, they were moving it out of there faster than any 4 Olympic athletes could. They had buckets, they had garbage cans, they had ladles. They were literally just removing this water as fast as any 4 people could. And as I came down the stairs, I saw what was happening. My wife looked up at me and I said, "Where's it coming from?" And she stopped. Nobody had stopped to think about that. But that's a very vivid story, right? Now you can picture my family scrambling around down there with all these containers, frantically bailing water out of this basement. That's different than, hey, my basement flooded. My wife and kids were bailing it out. See the difference? So the vivid details matter. And when you go about this, the way to apply it is to use the 5 senses. Think about the 5 senses. How can I describe what I see? How can I describe what I smelled? What did it sound like? What did it taste like, if that's applicable, if you're talking about a story with food in it? Or even if it wasn't food, I played baseball and I slid into second base plenty of times head first and ate some dirt. I can describe eating dirt because I've done it before. So, or what did it feel like? What did it feel like on your skin? Those are the senses, are the things you want to appeal to. So think about show, don't tell. Meaning, instead of saying she was angry, describe her clenched fists and her narrow eyes and her gritted teeth, right? Those are the same thing. She was angry, but if I say she was angry, or man, she was hot. She had her fists clenched, she had her teeth gritted, her eyes were narrow. You can really see an angry person when we describe it that way. So one way to take an action on that and learn how to do it better is to take a simple story and rewrite it, adding your own sensory details to make it more immersive. Even if you weren't there, even if it's not your story, write your interpretation of that story using those appeals to the senses. If you do that several times, it'll make you feel more comfortable using that language when you tell stories and incorporating it into your regular approach when you do tell stories in front of groups or to other people. So that's 2. Tip number 3, structure your story for maximum impact. So a well-structured story keeps people engaged and leads them to a satisfying conclusion. 3-act structure is classic: setup, conflict, resolution. Setup establishes the situation of the characters, the conflict introduces the tension or the challenge, and the resolution shows how it was resolved and what was learned. That's a very basic structure and setup. As a bonus tip to that, you could use and, but, therefore as a formula. Great. What the hell does that mean? Well, let me explain. I wanted to start a business and I had a great idea, but I had no money. Therefore, I had to get creative with my financing, right? That's the structure. Setup. I wanted to start a business. That's the setup. And I had a great idea. But here's the conflict. I had no money. Therefore, I'm going to tell you the resolution. I had to get creative with my financing, right? So an actionable way to do this is write a short story using this formula: and, but, therefore. So she was super hot and she was looking at me, but I couldn't get away from my friends to go over and talk to her. Therefore, I faked my own death and went over and talked to her, right? I know it's silly, but that's the same structure with an setup, a conflict, and a resolution. So it's a good formula. There's nothing wrong with following the formula. It works. I knew a guy that was excellent at sales, and he said sales is very basic. He had a structure. This is how he sold. Tell him what you're going to tell him. Tell him, and tell him what you just told him. So he hit the points over and over and over again. He was a hell of a salesman. He closed deals. That's what he did. And he used that same structure over and over again. So when a structure is solid, it will work over and over again. And but therefore is a good structure to use with setup conflict resolution. So give that a try. Write something down, practice it, see how it works for you, but it's a good way to go. But the structure matters. How you structure the story matters because you're going to keep people engaged all the way through and give them a happy ending or a good outcome to the story so that they feel satisfied that they spent their time listening to it. Okay, tip number 4, master the art of delivery. And this one's hardest because if you struggle with timing, if you struggle to know when to speak up, how to say things, or which words to emphasize in a sentence, that can be hard. But again, the best way to do it is to practice it. So it doesn't matter how good your story is. If you deliver it poorly, it's going to fall flat. So having a good story is part of it, but the way you tell and deliver the story is a big part of it as well. Your tone matters. Your pacing matters. Pausing for dramatic effect or to give the audience a second to catch up or think can influence how engaging your story is. So on your tone, you want to vary your tone and vary your energy. You don't want to be monotone. So there's parts of the story where you could get real excited and talk real fast like I'm doing right now. Or to really drive home the point, you could slow down and do what I'm doing right now and add dramatic pauses in between some words. See the difference? As long as you figure out on any particular story, like you don't want to tell a sad story in an upbeat, hectic way, right? That's going to fall flat because people are going to be like, what's the matter with this guy? Is he a psychopath? Does he have no feelings about what he's talking about? Or if you're trying to tell a joke and you deliver it like a third grader reading a book report, it's going to fall flat because it's not funny to listen to. So you got to vary your tone and your energy throughout the presentation. We already talked about this one, but use strategic pauses. So, when we tell a joke, we usually wait 2 or 3 seconds before we tell the punchline. So, for example, a horse walks into a bar and the bartender says, "Why the long face?" And the horse says, "Because my alcoholism is killing me." So you think the joke's over because it's the old bartender long face horse joke. But then you add the wrinkle of the horse is an alcoholic. But because you pause, it catches people off guard. So it has more comedic effect because they weren't expecting it. So that's just an example of using strategic pauses. And you've got to match your facial expressions and your gestures to the story. So if you're telling something upbeat and exciting and thrilling, you want bigger gestures. You want to move your hands. You want to move your arms. Your eyes will get bigger. Your eyebrows will raise. You'll walk pacing around the stage if you're on a stage. If you're telling a serious story, you're going to be much less animated. You're going to stand in one spot much more often, and you're going to make direct eye contact with the audience. So that's an example of matching your facial expressions and gestures to the story that you're telling. And your story could involve both situations. Maybe it morphs from one into another, and you want to change your facial expressions and your gestures as you move through the story. So here's a good way to practice that. Record yourself telling a story, and then listen back and note where you can improve on your energy, on your pacing, and or your emotion. And if you can videotape it, then you can do your facial expressions as well and your gestures like we talked about. But get it recorded and be your own critic. Look at it and say, I wonder if this would work. I wonder if that would work. Comedians go out and work on their jokes for months. They'll write a bunch of material and go to some club where no one's going to see them and test out new material. If the audience laughs, it makes it into the pile that says, I should keep this in the act, but maybe I need to tweak a little bit. Maybe it's perfect the way it is. If it goes over like a lead balloon, it goes on the scrap heap, and they know not to test it on their new Netflix special. But you can do the same thing to become a better storyteller. Record yourself and give yourself feedback based on how you feel as the person receiving the message while you're watching it. Okay, and then tip number 5, like we talk about on everything, practice, practice, practice. The best storytellers refine their craft over a period of time. Even professional speakers rehearse and adjust based on the feedback that they get. I can tell you that we've hired multiple speakers in our careers to speak at dinners, to speak at events, to speak at conferences. And there's always, and I mean always, a pretty lengthy interview process once you engage with the speaker, because they want to know who their audience is. They want to know what message you're trying to deliver to them. Is it sell more stuff? Is it be more serious about your job? Is it appreciation for a job well done, et cetera, et cetera? But they don't go into each speech or engagement the same. They want to know who their audience is so they can tailor their message to that specific audience. They rehearse it. They get feedback from you, and they do that over and over again, and they hone their craft. So how do you practice that? Tell stories to your friends. Tell stories at work. Watch their reactions. Are people actually paying attention to you? And look, this can be hard. Like if you're the boss, like I'm the CEO of our company, people are always going to listen and pretend I'm really smart, even if they think I'm a moron, because they don't want to lose their job. I don't go around firing people. That's just how people think. If you're the CEO, then people defer to you and give you way more credit than you ever deserve for good things, and way more blame, by the way, for bad things. But either way, it's tougher to filter the truth from fiction when you're in charge. But if you're not, that's a good audience to just kind of learn from your peers. How do they engage with you? You can join a group. There's groups that do public speaking. There's groups that work on storytelling. You can go take an improv class, because it puts you in those situations where you have to kind of do the stuff on the fly and react to the feedback you're getting from your audience. And again, you can record yourself and critique it on your own and see how you feel as the person receiving the message that you're trying to deliver. So an actionable exercise is share the same story with 3 different people and ask for feedback. What did you like about it? What was engaging? What did you not like about it? When did you lose interest? If I was going to tell that story again to an audience of X, with X being coworkers, or X being school children, or X being executives, how would you change the approach on the storytelling? That's a great way to go. So yeah, that's it, guys. Those are the 5 tips. Let's just recap them real quick. Start with a strong hook. Use vivid details and sensory language. Structure your story for maximum impact. Master your delivery, and practice, get feedback, and iterate. So you don't have to do all of those things at once. You can pick one of them and focus on that for a while. And once you feel good about that, move to another one. That's a great way to go. Like we talk about on this channel a lot. Slow and steady progress wins the day. Rarely are you going to make quantum leaps from where you are to where you want to get to be. But if you work on it over time, you can make big changes and have big impacts with those changes on your life. So that's our challenge to you. Pick one of those things and focus on that, and then down the road incorporate more. So that's the episode for today, guys. Hope you found that useful. James puts it up here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All our podcast episodes are there. Links to all our social media accounts are there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to on our website, and would love it if you're able to go over and check that out. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel on whatever platform you consume it on. It's super helpful for us. We really appreciate the support, and we will see you guys on the next episode.